first thing is to understand, where does confidence come from? And evidently, confidence comes from information. So getting financial information is a very good way of building personal confidence in anything. If you want to be confident in anything, be in the know. So you can actually gather financial information, financial knowledge, because it is paramount to be informed about investment arena and investment fundamentals. And there are a couple of things which we need to understand so that when we are choosing the investments, then we can choose an investment that can work for us. If we don't have basic information, it will be very difficult for us. The first thing is, it is always important to understand what is the purpose of this investment. What do we want to achieve? And there are multiple things you might be wanting to achieve in an investment. You might be looking at capital preservation. You have the money, you want to keep it somewhere for some period of time where it is not going to suffer from bank charges and effects of inflation. So if you're looking at capital preservation, then you need to be able to pick out what investment vehicles allow you to keep your money, keep it safe so that you can't lose it, and at the same time be able to have some minimal growth to counter inflation. And that says you might want to understand how money market funds work, government bonds, how they work, corporate bonds, how they work, fixed deposit by banks. So there are obviously a couple of options under the capital preservation area. So if you understand how they work, then you will have the information. You might be looking at capital growth. You want your money to grow. And one of the things you need to know, if the money has to grow, then you have to face some risk. And there are obviously many places where you can get your money to grow. And this is why you might be wanting to think about stocks or shares. You might want to do forex trading. You might want to try something like Mansa X. And you might try equity funds. You might want to do offshore investments. So there are obviously many options. It's a question of knowing which one do I pick. What's the purpose? What do I want to achieve with the money that I have? There are investments that we do for cash flow. You want it to be giving you money once in a while. So if, say, you take a government bond, every 6 months it is going to give you some return on investment. If you take Mansa X, every once a quarter, it's going to give you some return on investment. If you take a money market fund, in fact, on a daily basis, you can always get to know how much more you made. So if you're doing cash flow, you can even go into business where your money is going to generate more money. So that's important to understand. How does that apply to the investment that I want to do, so that then I'm able to pick the right vehicle? The other important consideration you need to understand is that there are short-term investments and there are long-term investments. The investments that make sense if you only go in long-term. Insurance policies fall in that category. If you're going to an education policy for your child, you're going to an endowment policy. If you get into a pension scheme, those are long-term investments. If you're looking to go to a money market fund, you're looking into a fixed account in the bank, those are short-term. And sometimes they might be correlated to your age, because if somebody is, say, in their 60s, they may not be looking at a 25-year investment. But if somebody is in their 20s, maybe they don't mind getting into a pension scheme that will be there for a long period of time. The other consideration area we need to understand is what investments require how much money. Because when you're thinking about investment options, it's always a question of how much money do you have. There are investments that will require a lot of money. There are investments that may not require a lot of money. There are investments that require you have all the money in cash. There are investments that can actually take money over a period of time. I mean, if you join the circle, if you join the pension scheme, you make a monthly contribution. If you buy an insurance policy, an education policy, a monthly contribution. But if you want to buy a piece of land, you need all the money together. When you go to funds like money market funds, when you go to Mansa X, when you go to offshore, you need to know what's the minimum that they want you to put in. What kind of installments will they accept if you have to do a top-up later? So that's important to understand. As it is important for you, if you want to be confident, to also understand your risk profile. Are you a risk taker or are you risk averse as an investor? Because when you get into the investments, there's a risk component for any kind of investment. And you need to understand those risk components so that if you are not, your risk profile isn't high, you may not want to get into risky investments. If you have the audacity to go into investments with risks, then you might choose investments. If you went, say, to a money market fund, your risk component is very low. But if you went to an equity fund, your risk component is high. If you go into Mansa X or you go to shares, your risk component for the investment might be high. If you go to the SACCO, if it is well managed, I think your risk component will actually be low. So you need to be able to understand how to do all those things. Now, the other consideration, something you need to understand, is what we call inflation. How does it affect investments? How does it relate to different investments? So that as you get to choose the investment you want to get into, then you should be able to know, how can I counter inflation? Is it going to be detrimental? How do I counter it? So it is important to understand how investments affect investments. Different investments are affected differently by inflation, so you need to understand inflation. It's also important for you to be confident about taxation. Different investments are taxed differently. If you don't understand the tax regime, you might pick the wrong investment. While the tax on rentals is below 10%, you know that the tax on your personal income might be above 30%. So again, you need to be able to know, how does this investment work? When is it paid? Because there are even investments where you don't pay taxes. If you are buying a government bond and you bought an infrastructure bond, then you'll not be paying any interest. There are many investments where you can enjoy a tax rebate. That means your tax can get lower. Pension scheme is one. An insurance policy is another one to think about. A fast home ownership program is another one. So again, this is why we need to understand the investments that we have. And when you're picking the investments, important for you to say, what is the goal? If the goal is to finance your retirement, then you had better look for long-term vehicles that are designed for that purpose, like a personal pension, like an umbrella scheme, like a group scheme. If you're looking short-term, you want to finance your holiday, not too far away from now, maybe you're going to look at putting your money in a money market fund or fixed deposit account. As an investor, it's also important for you to have information on how easy is it to get out. If you chose to leave that investment, how easy do you get out? What are the consequences of getting out? People join the cooperative movement and then the next day they want to get out. You need to understand, when you join the cooperative movement, you don't wake up tomorrow and say, I want my money back. There's a whole process that might take time. But if you have a bank account and you choose tomorrow you want to empty it, you can. So it is important for you to realize. The ease of getting gains, yes, there are places where you can get your gains. If you bought a piece of land and it appreciates, you can't take out the gains. You'd have to sell the whole piece of land. But say if you did an investment in a government bond, every 6 months you get the gains. If you did an investment in Mansa X, maybe every quarter you'll get your gains out. So it's easy for you. And this is why we invite you to come to the masterclass. Because if you're wondering how you can have confidence, then you should actually listen to our graduates and you know why they are confident. So we can invite you to come to the masterclass, because if you come to the Wealth Creation Masterclass, you can actually be able to learn a lot. All you need to do is to send a text to 0708 150 137. 0708 150 137.